What's up, everybody? This is Danny Thompson for AroundTheAssociation.com, and this is the East Regional Preview Show for the NCAA Tournament. So, with the NCAA brackets coming out on Sunday, it's been one of those times where you can do a long podcast on the entire bracket, or you can make shorter podcasts to make everything easier. And for those who know me, I'm kind of long-winded. So instead of making one giant long podcast going over all 68 teams in the field, we're breaking this down into 4 separate podcasts, devoting one to each region to give each of the teams in the region a little bit of love. So in this edition, we are talking everything about the East region. And really, the East region we'll start with first because of the fact that the top overall seed in the tournament is involved in this region. And there's also, well, you have 2 playing games in this region. And then, like I said, you have the rest of the teams in the bracket. So let's take a look at what to look for, who to look after. And as you're filling out your brackets, who should you look into as potential upsets and everything else in the East region? So let's start with the fact of in this region, 2 of the 16 seeded teams will have to play each other in the playing game in Dayton, and that includes North Carolina Central Eagles taking on North Dakota State in the opening round in Dayton. So if you look at these 2 teams, now let's be honest, until last year, it's not been a situation where a 16 beats a 1, and last year we had one of those with UMBC beating Virginia, which means Gardner-Webb has a shot at this. But normally, number 1 seeds don't lose in this tournament at all in the opening round. They're 135-1, counting the UMBC win last year in the opening round. So let's give NC Central and North Dakota State a little bit of a small chances in this game if the winner does somehow get to Duke. But realistically, there's not a chance that either one of these 2 teams will get out of the first round, will get out of Duke in Columbia. Well, let's talk about the game in the playing game. NC Central, they're 16-15. They were third in the MEAC in the regular season and won the conference championship. Coach Lavelle Moten has got this team back in the tournament. They just moved up to the MEAC 6 years ago, and this is the 4th time they've been in the tournament. Raheem Davis is averaging around 14 points and about eight and a half, almost 9 rebounds a game to lead the Eagles. But if you look at the Eagles now, they're a team that just scrapped their way to the tournament, and they've been a scrappy team, which has been kind of the protocol of the Eagles over the last few years. And Lavelle Moten said it best. If somehow they can get to Duke, and he didn't really want to say this, but if somehow they got to Duke, it was like him playing a game against his 6-year-old son. It's not going to be pretty. Central does have a chance to get out of Dayton, which would allow, honestly, a good contingent of North Carolina Central alums to make the drive to Columbia to at least make this game, at least not a pro-Duke crowd. So if Central can get out of the opening round, it'd be a great thing to see, especially they're playing basically an in-state game in Columbia, South Carolina, which is not far from Durham. It's a driving distance drive, and I'm sure that the North Carolina Central alums will go out there to go see their school play against arguably the best team in college basketball, arguably probably one of the greatest college basketball phenoms that we've seen in quite some time. And we'll get to him in just a minute. North Dakota State did also finish 18-15. They were third in the Summit League and won the Summit League tournament title, led by Vinny Shved, around 13 points a game. They shoot I think they shot close to, 38 to 40% of their shots from behind the 3-point line this season, and they hit 36% of them. Vinny led the team with 12.8 points a game. Like I said, they won the conference tournament and avoided South Dakota State, in the tournament, and South Dakota State had the country's, had 3,000 point scorer, Mike Dahm, who's not even in the tournament, so we haven't even discussed them. But North Dakota State is a little bit of a stylistic difference. They shoot a lot of threes. It's going to be, I don't want to say up and down affair because Central's not exactly one of those teams that can push the pace and push at 100 points. I like North Carolina Central in this game only because of the fact of they have so much more to play for. They have a chance to really make this a special game. But North Dakota State wins this game wouldn't be surprising because of the fact that they got hot in their tournament. And you can see this being a low scoring game, but realistically, if Central can get down to the nitty gritty and make the plays late. And what you love about these games in Dayton in the first 4 is that these games are normally good games. You don't really get too many blowouts in these games. And I like Central to scrap this one out the same way they won the MEAC in scrappy type of fashion to get their hands on Duke. Let's be realistic here. Like I said before, whoever wins this game doesn't stand a chance against Duke. Duke is the top overall seed in the tournament. They won the ACC tournament title over Florida State in the championship game. They finished technically third in the ACC in the regular season, and they are a team of, they're basically two teams. They're a team with Zion Williamson and a team without Zion Williamson. Right now, they're in the tournament as a team with Zion Williamson. With Williamson in the lineup, Duke has only lost one game. They're 29-4. Their only loss was to Syracuse, early back in January. They lost to, Gonzaga, out in Maui. And Gonzaga's number one overall seed number one seed out in the West bracket. But Duke, the one thing about Duke is that they're extremely top heavy. And when I say top heavy, when you go in June's draft, you're going to have three of the top five players in the draft coming from Duke's roster. Arguably, maybe three of the top four guys in the draft. We're talking Zion Williamson, mentioned before, RJ Barrett, who I still think is the most NBA ready player of anybody in the draft class. And I'll explain that in just a second. And Cam Reddish, another guy who is he's the one that took the back seat. I know Duke fans are frustrated with him because he came with the hype, but kind of like when you put three mega guys together, somebody has to take the back seat. And I think it's been Cam Reddish's turn to take the back seat in this ride, for Duke all year. And not to mention you have Tyus Jones at the point guard position. And he is, the point guard leader of this team. Now, what Duke does not have, and the weakness is the depth. Because outside of the four freshmen and Marquise Bolden, Javin DeLaurier, at the swing, who plays like the center position, Duke isn't very deep. Jack White has been inconsistent. Alex Connor's the best outside shooter. And, really, when you go back to the tournament, Goldwire and Frankovic, who plays little to no minutes between both of them, had to play huge roles because guess what? They didn't have Bolden, who was injured and missed the entire ACC tournament, who will be back for the NCAAs. He missed, it was no reason to bring him back, especially with a long number of games in a short number of time. Duke doesn't have the depth. Now, what makes Duke dangerous is the fact that they have the majority of the best players in the country on one team. They're just extremely top heavy. So when you look at them in a deep situation or going deeper into a tournament, the good thing about it is that the most you'll play at any point in time in the tournament is 2 games in 3 days. In the opening set of games, you look at Duke, they're going to blow away in North Carolina Central or North Dakota State. In my opinion, Central should get past the first 4. They should just get past this game easily, and and then they should march on to their second round opponent. Speaking of the second round opponent, in the 8-9 matchup, you look at UCF, New York Central Florida versus VCU, a battle of 3-digit letters. There was 3-letter teams. VCU is a team that most VCU people, people who think of VCU think of the Havoc style, Shaka Smart. This is a completely different VCU team. VCU is a team that dominated the A-10 throughout the regular season. They were beating everybody throughout the A-10 the entire year. They were 16-2 in the A-10 this year, finished year 25-7. Unfortunately, they got railroaded by Rhode Island in the first round of the conference tournament. They're led by the 2 Marcuses. Marcus Santos Silva. If you watch that game against Rhode Island, Silva was a load in the paint, 26 points, 22 rebounds. And then you have Marcus Evans on the perimeter, who leads them at 13.8 points a game. VCU is an extremely dangerous team. They play as a team. They have a bunch of guys who can do different things. They're very versatile. But like if they did not lose to Rhode Island, they'll have been on a different number bracket in this tournament. I don't think an 8 would have qualified them, but when you lose to Rhode Island in the tournament, and you really only have 25 wins, not too many superly huge qualifying wins, and the A-10 was exactly the strongest league in the country, the 8 does sound fine. Now, the matchup against UCF is a completely different type of matchup, because UCF, let's be honest, when you look at UCF, the first thing you think of is Taco Fall. There's nothing against that. Taco Fall is the tallest player in college basketball, and even by fifth third is considered, fifth third 8, has him listed as probably might be the most efficient player in the history of college basketball when it comes to shooting the basketball. On top of that, they have a really, really good backcourt. BJ Taylor, Aubrey Dawkins are really, really good. They average right around 32 points a game combined with Fall, right around 10 points, 7 rebounds, and almost 2.5 blocks a game. Fall plays around 25 minutes a game, and he's the attraction because he's 7'6", and he's actually really good to be 7'6". But if BJ Taylor, Aubrey, and Dawkins can get off, UCF not only can get past the first round, I'm not going to say they can give Duke a run. They're going to beat Duke in the second round, but they can make things interesting. Taylor's a very good defender. and Dawkins can score the basketball. It'd be kind of right that Johnny Dawkins would go. It'd be a great matchup to see Johnny Dawkins go against his main guy, Mike Krzyzewski, in the second round of the tournament. I like UCF a lot. Remember, UCF also this year, they were the only team to win at Houston. They went into Houston and beat Houston on the road. They also beat the American Conference Tournament champions, Cincinnati, early in the season, too. They also got beat in the first round of the conference. They also got beat in their conference tournament pretty badly as well, too. Don't sleep on UCF. They were a top 25 team at one point this season. Now let's go to the second half of the bottom half of that bracket. You're looking at Virginia Tech as a 4, another ACC school, and this ACC school is really good. Virginia Tech is a lot better than what people think. They have a very, very talented team, and the most important thing about it is that Justin Robinson's returning to the lineup. Justin Robinson's team starting point guard. He missed 12 games due to an injury. He will be ready for the NCAA tournament, and he is a difference maker. And when I say a complete difference maker, Virginia Tech is a completely different team with Justin Robinson in the lineup. They hit over 40% of their threes, I think almost 41, maybe 42% of their threes when he's in the lineup. He hits 41% by himself. He's at 13, almost 14 points a game, and right around 5 assists a game. On top of that, you have Kerry Blackshear on the inside, averaging over 17.7 rebounds a game, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who every NBA scout knows who he is. He's a very, very good two-way player, very good defensively. If you have not seen this kid play, rewind yourself back to the Duke game when he guarded R.J. Barrett in the game when they won at Castle Coliseum when Zion Williamson was out. Walker literally played R.J. Barrett the best way he possibly can. R.J. Barrett earned every point that night, and Walker has flying up draft boards because he's a very good defensive player. Virginia Tech is very dangerous. They're one of the better three-point shooting teams in the country. Like I mentioned before, they're a top 10 three-point shooting team. And if it comes down to a shootout game, I like Virginia Tech in any first or second round matchup, especially when you're shooting the basketball the way they do. Virginia Tech will take on St. Louis in the opening round. St. Louis is one of those teams that when the conference tournament play started, we didn't think they were a tournament team. They ended up running the table, winning the A-10 tournament. They finished with 23 and 12 right now for the season. They are a team, stylistically, they're not exactly the most fun team to watch. They're not exactly the best shooting team in the bunch. They average around 6-7 points a game. They struggle to score. And really the one thing about Cincinnati, or St. Louis, when you see them, I'm in Cincinnati because I'm thinking of Cincinnati for another podcast. We look at St. Louis, only only one regular starter shoots over 40% from the three-point line. They don't shoot very well as a team. They're 31% as a team from the three-point line, but only one person shoots over 40%. That could be a problem, especially when you're playing a team that likes to light it up from behind the arc. I don't think this is a very good matchup for St. Louis at all. St. Louis will have to get down to a grinded out type of game where it has to be possession by possession and really turn this into a half-court game. Like I said, they struggle to score a little bit, but they definitely cannot get into a three-point shooting contest with a team that is a top 10 three-point shooting team. It's one of those styles clashes that's going to be very interesting. If Virginia Tech gets hot like they have been most of the season behind the arc, it's not much of a battle this game. Mississippi State takes on Liberty in the other part of the top part of the bracket. Mississippi State is a team this year at 23-10. They finished 6th in the SEC. They have a very interesting group of guys. Quadri Witherspoon, who is first team all SEC, averaged over 18 points a game. They have 5 guys, not counting his brother Nick, who was suspended indefinitely, that average over 9 points a game. So they have balanced scoring everywhere. They know how to hit shots from deep. And Mississippi State's one of those teams, like you said, like you'll see throughout the tournament. If they can get hot, they can win a game or two in the tournament, and it'd be a real nice second round matchup if they can get their hands on Virginia Tech, because both the teams kind of play similarly. It's just going to be real interesting to see Nickeil Alexander-Walker take on a guy like Cornelius Witherspoon. That is a great matchup in the second round. I love it. Only if they can get past Liberty. Like, who is Liberty? Liberty, well, ask UCLA who Liberty is, because Liberty went into Pauley Pavilion early this season before the wheels fell off and beat UCLA in their own building. Liberty went 28-6. They won the Atlantic Sun regular season and conference tournament championships. Scotty James leads the way right at 13 points, 8 rebounds a game. One thing about Liberty, If you foul them, they will hit their free throws. They hit 77% they hit 77% of their free throws this season. So if they get to the line, they really can do damage from the line. That's why if Liberty can just get Mississippi State into foul trouble early, especially getting the penalty early in the bonus, and then in the penalty, you're going to see themselves getting extra points from the bucket because they don't miss free throws. 77% for an entire team is really, really good. Liberty can do something in this tournament. I like Liberty. They might be able to be pulled up opposite against Mississippi State. Listen, Liberty doesn't shy away from big time games. Like I said, when you go into Pauley Pavilion, no matter who you are, beat UCLA. That's a very good accomplishment when you're a school the size of Liberty. So we've gone over the top part of the bracket. Let's go to the bottom half of the bracket. The top seed, the second seed in the tournament on this bracket in the East region is the Michigan State Spartans. Sparty won the Big Ten Conference tournament champions. They beat Michigan 3 times this season. And what Tom Izzo's teams always have been done is Tom Izzo's team is full of a bunch of grinded out guys who are scrappy and they know how to win basketball games. Michigan State is 28-6. Like I said, they beat Michigan 3 times in the regular season, and they lost. They lost Cal. I think they lost one of the reserve guards, Cal Athens, to a injury in the Big Ten tournament. But don't worry, Cassius Winston is one of the best scorers in the country, right around 19 points a game. He shoots 41% from deep. Tom Izzo's team is one of those teams that is dangerous, and every year, Tom Izzo's teams can get it done in the tournament until they play Duke. For some reason, Tom Izzo's teams throughout history do not do well against Duke. I don't think that changes this year. You look at the 15th seed Bradley Braves. Well, Michigan State is a grinded out team. Bradley's a little bit different. I don't know how much of a challenge they're going to pose to Michigan State in the opening round, but to give Bradley their props at 2014, they won the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, and they won it in really like dramatic fashion. They were down 18 points to Northern Iowa in the championship game and came back and won. They're actually been a very, very good team. They've won 9 of their last 11 games. Like I said, they're a scrappy bunch. They don't score a lot. And listen, they grind games out. They won the conference championship game. It was a 50-47. They don't score that many points. They only have 2 guys in double figures. So don't expect a high scoring game with Michigan State and Bradley. Listen, if Bradley's one of those teams, if you leave them in the game, they got a chance to actually win the game. Michigan State has to put them away early. They should. I like Cassius Winston and company this game, but listen, don't ever sleep out a team that likes to grind out games, especially when you're playing somebody who they're not 90-point a game scorers. The 7-10 matchup in the same pod, you're looking at the 7th seed, which is the Louisville Cardinals, taking on the Minnesota Golden is it Minnesota in that bracket? 7-10. You're looking at Minnesota taking on Louisville in the most interesting matchup because you have Rick Pitino's son against the school that Rick Pitino coached. This should be fun. Louisville's 2013. They finished 6th in the ACC. This team their fortune's been completely different if they knew how to close out games. The problem with Louisville is that they lost 6 games within 5 points or less, including 3 of them in overtime. We're not even talk about the Duke game when they had Duke up 23 points and could not close the deal. The one thing about Louisville is that Louisville plays defense. They're an outstanding defensive team, top 20 nationally, but they're so inconsistent on offense. It's like they play such good defense, but the offense doesn't get it done. They're up and down, streaky on the offensive side of the ball. And this could be a matchup Minnesota could win because guess what? Louisville's 4-7 in the last 11 games. I love Jordan Noir from Louisville, 17 points, almost 8 rebounds a game. Louisville, when they're on, they play really well. It's just somehow they have an issue with closing games or figuring out how to ways to win. When we lose as many games as they do, they should maybe win a game or 2. We'll see. Minnesota, on the other hand, if you're talking about a team that's going to make you just look at yourself, Minnesota's one of them. They finished year 21-13 in the Big Ten. Inconsistency is another problem with them. They've just been up and down. They've been spiking up and down. The one thing about Minnesota is that Minnesota is very scrappy. Jordan Murphy is 6'7" on a good day, maybe 6'6" on an average day. But Jordan Murphy is in the history of the Big Ten, he's the second lead rebounder in the entire history of the conference. we're talking all the years of the Big Ten, all the big forwards we're talking that they've had run through this conference. And Jordan Murphy is the second best rebounder in the conference's history. He's also averaging 14 points a game. They also have junior guard Mark Coffey, and Coffey is averaging around 16 points a game. But one thing about Coffey is that he gets to the line. He averages right around 6 free throws attempts a game, and when he scores 18 more points, the Gophers are 12-3. That's a magic number. He gets to 18. The Gophers got a shot at this thing, and like I said, somebody's going to be consistent enough in this game. The one who is consistent will actually win this game and get their hands on Michigan State over the weekend. You got the third seed LSU Tigers taking on Yale. Listen, before I get to LSU, let's talk about Yale real quick. Yale won the Ivy League tournament championship. They tied for the regular season, won the conference tournament championship. And they also beat in non-conference schedule. They beat Miami and Cal in the non-conference schedule. So they actually beat some Power 6 schools in the early part of the season before we got to conference play. And Yale has a nice little talented team. A guy you want to watch out for is Mai Ori. 17 points, 6 rebounds a game. He's a combo guard. He's really one of the more underrated players that you see in the country. People don't really know about him because he plays at an Ivy League school in Yale. I'll say this. He got one of the best compliments you're going to find of anybody in college basketball when Yale played Duke early in the season. And Mike Krzyzewski said this kid's a first-round talent. Now, Duke did beat them 91-58 in Cameron, but he said that Ori is an NBA first-round talent, and scouts are looking at this kid. The kid can really play. He could be one of those guys, I'm not going to say that he has a chance to go off, but he's one of those guys that if you're watching the tournament, if you're looking for a guy that is going to be fun to watch Ori. He does a lot of different things. He is a very versatile player. LSU is one of these teams that is an endangerment to a 3 seed losing in the first round. Why do I say endangerment? Here's the problem. LSU's head coach, Will Wade, is missing the entire tournament and probably will be fired pretty soon after all this because he's in the middle of an NCAA investigation involving bribing players through a wiretap. One of the guys that he bribed, allegedly, is actually playing on the team, is also one of the 3-headed monsters in the backcourt for LSU, and Javonte Smart. He averaged about 11 points a game. LSU had the best record in the SEC in the regular season. They won 26 games. They got beat by Florida in the SEC tournament. And with Tony Buford behind the bench, it doesn't look – I'm not sure what LSU team you're going to get. Talent-wise, they are really good. They're very deep. They have an extreme number of talent. Nazir Reed, who was on my big board in the beginning of the season at the forward position. You got Sherman Watts. You have they have Skylar Mays. They have guys who can score. They have a very good team. But your leader and head coach is not on the sideline, and it's not because he's having a bad issue of health. It's the fact of he probably will be without a job very quickly. It just so happened to happen. It happened right before the SEC tournament. Smart got cleared to come back. Wade has not been coming back. He's been trying to politic for his job. Who knows? If any of the threes are in danger, it's LSU only because of the coaching issue. The good news is they have a week to figure this out before they jump on the tournament to take on Yale. We'll see. The one thing about the LSU guards, their big 3 guards, is that none of them have the size to guard Ori on the perimeter, because Ori's right there about 6'6", 6'7", and the guards are right around 5'10" to about 6'3", I think, between all 3 of them. So that's going to be a stylistic matchup problem. If LSU's on their game, LSU is a definite Sweet 16 team, and they could potentially get to Elite 8 if they can somehow get this talent together. But there's so much controversy involving this team right now. I don't know what team you're going to see, because we've seen how good LSU has been this year. But then we also saw the Florida game where they weren't even all together on the same page. That's the part where it becomes real scary if you're looking at picking a team and look at LSU, not just in the first round, but even going deeper past the first round. And the last matchup, the opening round, look at the 6-11 matchup. Now, the 6-11 matchup, that includes Maryland at 6, but then you also have Belmont and Temple playing in the playing game in Dayton as well, too. Let's talk about that playing game before we get to Maryland. The 2-11 seeds, Belmont and Temple are 2 different teams. Temple's at 23-9. They finished 3rd in the A10. The AAC. I keep thinking the A-10 because they were in the A-10 for so long. But the American Conference, Temple went 23-9. They also beat Houston, and they also beat UCF. Temple is a team led by Shaz Alston Jr., 19 points, 5 assists a game. He is a guard, is a spark plug. Fran Dunphy's team, it's not the same Temple team that your father knew, or my parents knew, or even I remember growing up that grinded up games under John Chaney. It's a completely different style of team. Temple got in the tournament, like I said, because of of wins they had in the American Conference. But they're going against a team in Belmont. Number one, they were a tournament team before they lost to Murray State in the OVC tournament. Was it Belmont? They were 26-5. They are extremely good. They shoot the basketball very well, very efficient. And Dylan Windler is one of these guys, kind of like Uri, that you want to watch. Windler averages 21 points, 10 rebounds a game. He's a 6'8" guard. Yes, he is a guard. He has the ball in his hands a lot. But one thing about Windler is that he is one of those guys that puts up numbers and he does it efficiently. 54% from the floor, 43% from deep, 85% from the line, from a guy that averages 21 points a game. He gives it to you inside, he gives it to you outside, and he also gets to the line. Belmont is dangerous in this tournament. Not only I think they can beat Temple, I think they can even beat Maryland. Speaking of Maryland, the one thing about Maryland is that Maryland's now a Big Ten school, so kind of the style of play is a little bit different. Big Ten teams seem to struggle in this tournament, it seems like a lot of times. They might have one or two that go deeper in the tournament. Big Ten teams are more of these grind out physical type teams, and that's what Maryland is. Maryland is 21-10. They did 22-10. They did all right in the Big Ten this year, but they have one of the best NBA prospects in the game in Bruno Fernando, the big man who averaged a double-double a game, 13 points and 10 rebounds a game. They also have Anthony Cohen Jr., who averaged 16 points and 4.3 assists a game. One thing about Maryland this year, and that has been one of the most contradictory things about Maryland this year, is that they're one of the most efficient teams in the Big Ten. They were top 5 in offensive and defensive efficiency all year, and they've been very efficient all year long, even outside of Big Ten play. But the contradictory part is 1/4 of their possessions have ended up in a turnover, which is really weird because when you have a team that's efficient in offense and defense, but you're turning the ball over 1/4 of the time, and you go against a team like Belmont who can shoot the basketball, if you're making mistakes, Belmont will make you pay for those mistakes. Temple can make you pay for them, but not like Belmont can. If a 6 goes down, it's this one. If Belmont gets past Temple in round 1, I think Belmont can beat Maryland in round 2, which sets themselves up for a potential interesting style matchup against LSU or Yale in the Sweet 16. So let's talk about who I have in this bracket. Now, for those who don't know, follow the website, which is follow the Facebook page, which is aroundtheassociation.com. Subscribe to the actual email. Like the page, follow it, and share it, because we are doing an NCAA tournament bracket where I want you, if you're listening, and also the viewing public, to actually outpick me in the tournament. Whoever wins the bracket will win a Walmart gift card, a $50 Walmart gift card that'll be mailed to that person directly, that you can go use, for whatever you need to, gifts, food, stuff for your house. It doesn't matter. It's a $50 Walmart gift card that'll be sent to the person who does pick the bracket the best. It'll be through ESPN. It's a big contest. I want everybody to share it. It's actually free to enter. So you're not paying for it, and you got a chance for a Walmart gift card. So I'm going to give my picks for the bracket right now. So I'm going to go from the top and just walk your way all the way through. This podcast is almost 30 minutes anyway, so let's go ahead and pick the bracket all the way through. So, play-in game, North Carolina Central, North Dakota State. I mentioned this before, I love North Carolina Central in this game. I love the scrappiness of LaMelo Moton's team. And I think the motivation of actually going back to Columbia and playing Duke, basically be the sacrificial tournament team to Duke in the opening round, I think is going to get Central out of the first round. They'll get their hands on Duke. Duke will obliterate them in minutes. Zion Williamson will be dunking all over them. It will be Zion Williamson's homecoming in Columbia, and it'll be a dunk show. It'll be a dunk fest all game long. I like Duke getting out of those out of that first set of games. UCF, VCU. Once again, VCU was a dominant team in the A-10 all year. They have a stylistic thing. Like I said, Santos Silva is really good in the post. They have Marcus Evans in the perimeter. But I like UCF in this game. I like the backcourt of BJ Taylor and Aubrey Dawkins. And Taco Fall is going to make enough plays defensively. And Johnny Dawkins' team plays very, very good defense. And I think that because VCU doesn't have the strongest book of business when it comes to wins, I like UCF, the fact they are battle tested. Yes, they got beat pretty bad in their conference tournament. But give me the Golden Knights to go to round 2 to take on Duke. Easy. Duke is going to take care of UCF. Here's the thing. UCF is as good as UCF is. BJ Taylor's a really good defender. They can't guard RJ Barrett. And I see Zion trying to make a poster out of Taco Fall. Duke gets to the Sweet 16. They'll get past UCF in the second round. The bottom part of the draw, Virginia Tech against St. Louis. You're talking about a team that Virginia Tech that can shoot the three-point ball against a team that against St. Louis that can't shoot the three-point ball very well. You know how this turns out. Virginia Tech is very good behind the three-point line, and they're also very accurate. And when you have your starting point guard back in the lineup, who does make a difference in Justin Robinson, Virginia Tech's a dangerous team in this tournament. They'll get past the opening round. Mississippi State and Liberty. I mentioned before, Quinnell Witherspoon is a tremendously talented player. Liberty knows how to win these games against big foes. I like Liberty, actually. I think Mississippi State in this game. Even though Mississippi State is very balanced, 5 guys in double figures, something about Liberty in that 5-12 matchup, I like them getting past it. So we have a Virginia matchup in the second round, Liberty, Virginia Tech. As much as I like Liberty, Virginia Tech is a very, very good shooting team in the basketball. They shoot the basketball very well. Virginia Tech gets to the Sweet 16. In the bottom part of the draw, we're looking at Michigan State, Bradley. I mentioned before, Michigan State should just jump all over Bradley early. Bradley is just, they're a good team, but Michigan State's better. Minnesota, Louisville, stylistic matchup between two teams that are not really consistent. I like Louisville because of the fact that they lost those games. And if it gets down to a tight game, I like the fact that if they've lost these games, they got the experience of losing these games. I like Louisville because they are battle tested just by a little bit over Minnesota, but watch Jordan Murphy. He's going to have a phenomenal game, especially on the glass. You talk about a second round match between Louisville and Michigan State. Like I said, a consistent team versus a team that is led by Tom Izzo. A team that's up and down against a team led by Tom Izzo. Give me Izzo's team to the Sweet 16. LSU, Yale. Like I said, LSU is a team in turmoil. If any of the 3 seeds are in danger, this could be the one that's in danger. I like Yale's scoring ability, but I'm just not going to pull the trigger on this one. Give me LSU in this one. In the 6-11 matchup, I said I have Belmont beating Temple in the opening round. I have Belmont beating Maryland in the second part of the opening round. And then I actually have Belmont getting past LSU. I told you I don't trust LSU this tournament. I think LSU's gone. So in the Sweet 16, I have Duke. I have Duke going against Virginia Tech, and I have Michigan State taking on Belmont. So in a rematch game that happened a couple weeks ago, remember Virginia Tech didn't win this game without Duke having Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson does make a difference. Ask North Carolina what the difference is. This kid's completely an amazing athlete. Virginia Tech will shoot the ball very well and Kerry Blackshear will try his best to keep Zion Williamson off the glass. Nickeil Alexander-Walker will do his job on camera, on RJ Barrett, but the guy to watch this game will be Cam Reddish. Give me Duke to the Elite 8. Michigan State against Belmont. You give Tom Izzo enough time to get his team ready. They beat Belmont. I think they beat Belmont. They'll find a way to stop Dylan Wonder on the perimeter. They'll find ways to guard guys defensively. And Cassius Winston's one of the 5 best players in college basketball that's not on the Duke roster right now. Give me Michigan State to Elite 8, but I'm taking Duke in the Final Four. So I'm taking Duke to beat Michigan State in the Elite 8, and Duke's headed to the Final Four. It's real simple. Duke doesn't have the best depth in the country. When you have guys who are not just good, but you're talking elite level lottery players in the draft, it makes things a lot easier. So I'm taking Duke in this bracket. Players to watch. I'll give you a couple of them to watch. That's not on the Duke roster. We all know about Zion Williamson. We all know about Cam Reddish. We all know about RJ Barrett. We all know about Trey Jones. We know about those guys. So here are a couple names that you want to watch in the East region that could make things very interesting. I mentioned before, Taco Fall. If you've not seen Taco Fall play 7'6" for UCF, he is a guy that you want to watch because he's the tallest guy on the floor. But BJ Taylor is the heart and soul of UCF's team. He's the engine that makes this team go. That's 2 names there. Like I said, Cornell Witherspoon was first team all SEC for Mississippi State, can put up buckets. They average almost 19 points a game. That's a guy you want to watch. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is an All-American. He's a top, is one of the best defenders in college basketball. Like I said, he is a potential lottery pick in the draft. He is a shutdown, a lockdown defender. He's one of those guys you might want to watch. Justin Robinson is another one because he means that much to Virginia Tech's team. On the other side, LSU, like I said, Nazir Reed is a first round talent. Don't know if he's going to come out in the draft this year. He could. He can be one of those guys that can make a run. He's very talented on the interior. He's ESPN top 100 player. I think he was either McDonald's All-American last year at LSU. He's playing at LSU now. I mentioned before, Dylan Winder at Belmont is a scoring machine. He does it on both. He rebounds, he scores. He's very efficient with the ball. He's very efficient when it comes to shooting, and he gets buckets. He reminds me a lot of Doug McDermott. And we saw how Doug McBuckets did at Creighton. He has that type of game to him. It just fits so well for the college game. Michigan State, like I said, Cassius Winston is one of the 5 best players in college basketball that is not on that Duke roster. He's the type of guy that can win games offensively. He's the type of player Tom Izzo has really never had a guy who can score buckets on both ends, score buckets on the offensive end at a very, very high rate. I don't think I can remember anybody from Michigan State that can score buckets at this level. So to recap real quick for those who missed out on the last 40 minutes of the podcast, I'm taking Duke in the East region. I know it's the number 1 seed. Listen, I'm not picking all number 1s in this Final Four, so I'll tell you that right now because it's very rare all number 1s make it out of the first round because one of these number 1s is going to lose in the opening weekend, but it won't be Duke. I'm taking Duke. The team to watch and the team that's going to be the team the lowest seeded team that's going to make it the furthest will be Belmont. They'll get to the Sweet 16. So, am I right or am I wrong? Let me know how you feel about the East Region bracket. And for all the alums of all these schools, I want to hear from you guys too. Follow me on Twitter at Danny3 Thompson on Twitter, as well as follow me around the association website, which is aroundassociation.com, the Facebook page, which is around the association radio, and check out everything that we have coming up throughout the NCAA tournament, as well as we get towards the NBA playoffs. So we got 3 other podcasts going before we get to the Final Four podcast. So I want you guys to tune in. I'm Danny Thompson from the Association. Peace.